The silence is held every year at 11 a.m. on the 11th of November to remember those who lost their lives. It's also a chance to remember those who have died in conflict in the 100 years since. Let's go to our Midlands correspondent now, Lisa Dowd, who's at the National Memorial Arboretum in Staffordshire. Lisa.
Well, veterans, families and military figures have all gathered here at the National Memorial Arboretum to mark the end of World War I, but have also to remember the servicemen and women who have given their lives in service for their country over the decades. And of course, this is the first Armistice Day since the passing of the late Queen Elizabeth II. She will, of course, be in people's thoughts here today as well. She was a patron of this National Memorial Arboretum and, of course, was Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces for such a long time. So there will be a poem read out in her memory, written by the poet laureate Simon Armitage today. And there will, of course, be a 2-minute silence observed here, as it will be across the nation, and there will be a wreath-laying ceremony as well.
Lisa, thank you. Well, as we approach 11 o'clock, this is the scene now. People will soon pause across the country and fall silent for 2 minutes to mark Armistice Day. And that is the scene at the Cenotaph, from the National Memorial Arboretum in Staffordshire to the Cenotaph in Belfast to the Fields of Remembrance in Westminster and Cardiff. People across the country falling silent.
When you go home, tell them of us. We gave our today.
And a single bugler there, marking Reveille, that bugle call that marks the end of that 2-minute silence. Reveille, of course, a call that signals the start of the day's activities of any soldier's life. It's one of a number of bugle calls in military tradition that marks the phases of the day. And here we have wreaths being laid after that 2-minute silence, observed across the nation, to mark the anniversary of the end of World War I in 1918, remembering not only those who lost their lives in that conflict, but in the 100 years since. And this year's commemorations, of course, beginning with recently restored Big Ben striking 11 times. It is a 2-minute silence that is held every year at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month to mark the end of that great war. Remembrance Day services will be held on Sunday. The royal family attending one at the Cenotaph, the first since the death of the Queen. You're looking at pictures of the National Memorial Arboretum, where our Midlands correspondent Lisa Dowd is at the moment. Let's speak to Lisa now. And how are they marking the day there, Lisa?
Well, I've been speaking to some of the people who are gathered here, and on some of their minds as well is the fact that war in Europe is again being waged, and they've talked about how some of the scenes there have been reminiscent of conflicts past, though that very much on their mind as well. The service here will conclude with God Save the King, King Charles, who of course is now the new commander of the armed forces, and there is royal representation here in the figures of the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester, who will be completing the planting of 26 trees following the service in memory of the late Queen Elizabeth II, the former Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, as part of a nationwide project to commemorate her with the planting of 1 million trees. And once this service has concluded, people will have time to reflect on this memorial. There are the names of 16,000 servicemen and women etched into the Portland stone. They are servicemen and women who have been killed since World War II, and a sobering thought that there is room on this memorial for the names of 15,000 more.
Okay, Lisa, thank you very much. Our ceremonies continue, and they will, of course, continue throughout this weekend, as it is the 11th of November today. We have just marked 2-minute silence to mark Armistice Day, the end of World War I back in 1918, and to commemorate those we have lost not only in that war, but in every war since.